Welcome to the Highcast, the podcast where we chit chat, spill the tea, and some facts. I'm your host, Thais, and I'm highly happy to have you here. In tonight's episode, I'm going to talk about how psychedelics helped me level up energetically. Psychedelics have given me a lot of strange experiences over the years, but the most meaningful ones weren't the visuals or the weird moments. They were the experiences that changed how I related to grief, control, and attachment. Tonight, I want to share three psychedelic trips that helped me level up energetically and the lessons they left behind. So we're gonna dive right into the stories. The first story is called 5 grams, and it happened back in 2022. And I need to give you guys a little bit of a background story. So at the time, I was quite young and I was living in the States. And I was always very, very close to my grandmother. And in like May 2021, she passed away. And it was a really strange experience for me because like I moved in 2019, so it had been 2 years already that we haven't like seen each other in person. And then she died and it was weird because like nothing changed like physically for me, like even though I had just lost like one of the people that I love the most in the whole entire world, but in the reality that I was living in, nothing changed, right? So I heard that she passed away because everything just happened so fast on like Saturday afternoon. And on Monday, I was back at work and nobody knew what had happened. And I had to act completely normal, right? Like it was the pandemic and I was living abroad. I was really young. So I just kind of did what I had to do. And then we cut back to 2022 when I did the trip. It was actually one of the first ones that I ever did. It was the first time that I was taking 5 grams, aka the heroic dose. And it was the craziest thing ever. I think to this day, it was one of like the heaviest trips that I've ever like experienced. Like I said, it was the first time I was taking 5 grams, because like when you first start, like you can start with too much. I think you kind of have to like ease into it. So I think it was like the third time that I was taking mushrooms, and it was a crazy experience because so what I like to do is I like to put like headphones on, and I like to cover my face. Like I like to be in the dark usually because I really want to experience myself, I guess. And I can't remember the trip exactly, but something happened in like within the hour that I took the mushrooms. And when I realized, I was like literally sobbing. Like I was crying so much. It was like I never cried so much in my life. And I don't think I ever will again because I was crying for like over 3 hours. And like, I'm not even exaggerating. I was crying for over 3 hours non-stop. It was insane. And like I said, it's been so many years now and I can't remember like exactly what was going on, but like I remember having a lot of like flashbacks of like moments, and I think that like during the trip there was some sort of like understanding, and I think it was the first time that I was actually um like grieving, like it was pretty crazy because like I at the when it happened, I didn't allow myself to feel because I think it was like too much, like, and then like I think I just buried deep inside, but then that was like one of the first things that the mushroom brought out. And I think the biggest lesson is that like unprocessed emotions don't disappear, right? Like it was bottled up, and I was trying to avoid for like a while, but then there was a time that I couldn't, right? I had to deal with it. But the most amazing thing happened afterwards, because that grief became gratitude, right? Like, because if you think about it, like grief, if you look at like the funnel of like vibrations or energy, grief is very low. And even though I wasn't aware of it, it was inside of me, right? So everything, like, it was part of my lens, of my like perspective lens. So, like, even though I was ignoring it, I was like, I had that inside of me. And when I was able to like fully feel the grief and like feel the pain, and not only that, but like being able to release it, right? Because think about it, like I was crying and like sobbing. Like I was, think about how dehydrated I was afterwards, but it was insane. I never cried so much. It was so crazy that like I was in my little studio apartment in Reseda Boulevard, and I had to get out. Like I had to go to my car because like I felt like I couldn't breathe, like it was so heavy. But like, and I think a lot of people would consider that a bad trip. I do not believe in bad trips. I think that if you get anxious about what the medicine is showing you, you probably be resistant, and that will create like the bad trip. What I felt was grief. It was painful, it was sad, but I had to feel that because afterwards, like, it was magical because I felt so light. Like, I felt like all that heaviness that I was feeling before, that I was trying to ignore, I just left behind. And now, when I think about my grandma, who is still so important in my life, I think about her not just with gratitude, but with love. And I miss her, but it's not sad anymore. Like, I can feel her presence, and, I can pray, I can go like visit her and whatever, but it's not painful anymore. I don't cry when I think about her anymore because I already felt everything that I needed to feel. So that was like the first time that I really understood how amazing like psilocybin mushrooms actually are. Because when I started, I didn't go into it with the idea that I was learning anything. I was just experimenting. But after that trip, because that was life changing for me, because I feel like if I didn't have the mushrooms, maybe like it would have been something that I would have carried with me for so much longer. And I think that it probably would have made a big difference in my life. And then we go to the second story. And the second story is a lot more recent. It happened last year. So it's been maybe like a year and a half since this one happened. And this one is called The System. And this trip kind of taught me to go from more controlling state into a more trusting one. But this story is actually kind of crazy and I think is worth sharing. So, at some point last year, I became very interested in NDEs, and I was like watching so many videos about it, and the stories were insane. you know. And most of the people talking about it, like, they had pretty similar experiences. They share that they see these like creatures, and they but the one thing that they all have in common is that they have this like out of body experiences, right? And I became interested with this about a week or so before I did this trip, right? And, I feel like that is something that I learned over the years, is that, like, whatever you have in your brain, like close to the time that you're doing the trip, it's probably gonna be used into your experience, and like at the time I wasn't even thinking about it, but I took the 5 grams, I lay down on my bed, and I had the craziest experience of my life. Like I said, I usually like to be in the dark and I like to put headphones on, and I always put the same playlist. I have like a perfectly curated playlist for my trips, because I think that like everything that you do, like when you're tripping, like it connects exactly to how that trip is gonna go. Like the set and setting for the trips are so important. And for that one, like everything was dark, headphones on, and I kind of like started looking like at my body, and I was just observing myself for like the longest time. But then like it was so strange, but I could literally like see myself laying down, right? Like I was looking at myself somehow, and it was exactly like in the movies, or like, I mean, when people are like, I mean, literally like dying, and their like spirit is out of the body and they're like watching from outside. That was literally what was happening to me, and it was absolutely mind blowing, because like I had heard about it, right? But I never thought I could experience something like that. Especially because I was completely fine, thank God. Um, but I did, but then like it was like the inside was a little bit more like not completely related to that, I guess, because like I was looking at myself, and when it was happening, I was like, holy shit, I am experiencing like this out of body experience, right? But then after a few minutes, I started thinking, I was like, you know what? Like right now, my body, like even though my brain is like wondering and there's so much happening, my body is still functioning perfectly. Because, like, if you think about your body, like, your brain gives the goals, right? Like, your brain tells your body what it has to do. Like, your brain tells your heart that it has to beat. Your brain tells your lungs that it has to breathe, right? Like, it tells your, like, stomach or your bladder or whatever. Like, your brain has to give the commands for your body to function, right? And I was like, we are here thinking that we are in control of so much. Like there are times in our lives where we are so sure of something, when in reality, we have no control over anything. Because, like, your conscious mind, like, your brain is divided, right? You have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And we believe that our conscious mind is the smartest thing out there, right? Because we can think and we can we can like analyze the things, right? Like we see a situation and we can form an opinion about it, right? But our subconscious mind, it's so much smarter than our conscious mind, because I do not know, like as a conscious being, I do not know how to tell my heart to beat. I don't know how to tell my lungs to breathe, right? I don't know how to tell my legs to walk or run. Or I don't even know how my hand is moving right now. Like I'm not thinking about my hand moving, but my hand is moving, right? And who's giving those commands is actually my subconscious mind, not my conscious mind. My conscious mind is talking with a little microphone and looking at my phone, right? But my subconscious mind is telling my heart to beat right now. If my heart doesn't beat, I cannot live, right? My subconscious mind is telling my lungs to breathe, which allows me to exist. So, like, and then I had like these few realizations that, like, one, our bodies are literally like a system, right? Like everything has a purpose and everything works like exactly the same. Because like the biggest thing that I was thinking when I was having all this like realizations was, I am having an out of body experience, which is absolutely like crazy and amazing. But I'm gonna have to choose to go back to my body at some point, because my body needs to pee. The bladder inside my body is full and it has to put that liquid somewhere. So I have to take myself to the toilet to pee. And I have no choice, right? Like, I mean, I can choose where I pee, but I know that my body is gonna have to pee at some point. And that is so little, because I mean, like, when are you even gonna like reflect on the fact that you pee, right? But it's so small, but like you have no choice. You're not choosing to pee. You have to do it. You're not choosing to eat. You have to do it. You're not choosing to drink water. You simply have to do it. Like your life revolves around you keeping your system going, right? And that was the first thing. And I know that like maybe is not that deep, but for me, it was like, because I just had never thought about it that way, right? And then like the second one was the going from controlling to trusting, because like I realized that I can trust myself to keep me safe, to keep me going, to keep me alive, right? I literally do not depend on anyone else for anything. Like I depend 100% on myself, and not like in like an egoic way, but it's like I am the only one that can can keep my body functioning, right? I am the only one that can give myself food. I am the only one that can give myself water. Like I am responsible and able to care for myself without having to think about it. So like that just allow me to trust myself so much more, and just like the just trust the that I have the ability to carry myself wherever I want to go, because if I can keep a body alive every single day of my life, then I can do whatever I want. Like I think that we don't realize how incredible and how perfectly everything works And I think that like when I do the trips, that is like one of my favorite things, is just to realize how much unaware we tend to be, whenever we're like conscious, So I think that like whenever I do the trips, I just bring so much more awareness into who I am, and just to like the universe and everyone else. Is just it's an amazing experience. And I think that the biggest lesson from this trip is that like you just have to trust the process more than the intellect. Okay, and then we go to the third story, which is called the graduation. And this one, like I this one was also a pretty crazy experience. Um I think like the trip itself wasn't like, I don't know, like so intense, but the learnings I got from it was like amazing. And this trip really helped me go from attachment to acceptance. And so the story, like I said, is called The Graduation. And it's because the trip, like I remember, so I took the mushrooms and I lay down. Everything was dark, and then I just started like seeing chairs. Like I just started seeing a bunch of chairs, and I was just looking around, and then I saw like a stage, and it felt like a school like gym. So I just sat in one of the chairs, and there was this like big red curtain on the stage. And as soon as I sat down, the curtain started like opening, and I saw every single person I have ever met in my entire life. And not just like people, I saw like every living thing that had a play in my life, like every single person that I have ever known was on that stage. Every single pet that I have met or that I know the name of was there. Every teacher, every friend, the strangers I like looked at, every single person was there. People that I loved, people that I didn't like that much, but every single person that I know was there. And I was so confused. Like I remember just like looking, but then something weird happened because they started clapping. Everybody started clapping, and I was watching them. And at this point, I was so confused. And then I realized that it was my graduation, right? It was like I was graduating that version of me, or like that chapter of my life. It was like the last act, It felt like, like when you have a musical and all the actors come back on stage to like bow to the audience, like that was the feeling. It was like this like strange feeling of an ending, but like an ending after you watch the show. It was bizarre, but it was pretty amazing actually. But that trip was awesome because it just gave me such a deeper understanding on relationships, because I remember one thought that I had, when I was looking at all those people and I was like watching them clap for me. I realized that like every single one of them played a role in my life. Even if they didn't do me good, like they had a purpose. And when I was like looking at them, it just felt like they it felt like they couldn't have done anything differently because they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Like it's so strange, but it was so like, and if you think about your life, like even the people that like you don't like, or like, I don't know, exes, or people that you were friends with, or like whoever, like every single one of those people played a role into who you are right now, right? And like I felt gratitude for them, because they were part of the story, right? Like they were there, and I guess they were part of my story. But it was so like intense to be grateful for people that like I genuinely do not appreciate, like, but I was grateful for them, because even though they were not the nicest, they played the role, and they were just a character, like it was like the script was already written down, and they were just like the available actors to play the role. Um, so like I just like I didn't feel so like strongly about them anymore. It was like because I understood that they did exactly what they were supposed to, like I just felt like I couldn't be mad or sad or attached anymore, And I also had this thing where I realized that I made a lot of mistakes too. I think that like when we are hurt in relationships, I think that it's really easy for you to blame the other person, either is a friend or a partner or a family member. But I think that is so important that we realize that we also make mistakes and that we also hurt people even when we don't want to. I think that like it really made me look at myself and just understand that like whatever went down at the time, like I was doing my best, and the person that was with me was also doing its best, even if I had a fight with a friend or a fight with my ex or whatever. Like I know that the both were doing their best, even if it wasn't the best, right? But I think that we were acting like according to what was available to us at that time, and it just gave me this sense of like a clean slate, because I just felt like they didn't owe me anything, and I didn't own them anything. Like it was like we didn't have to have an energetic link anymore, because we just did not own each other anything. Like I was able to let go of, you know, things that made me so sad, or even experiences that really shaped my behaviors. I was just able to be like, okay, we're good to go. I stopped waiting for an apology or expecting someone to like finally realize that they were the ones that made a mistake or whatever. Like I was able to let go completely. And that was the biggest lesson, I think, is that like being grateful for the people that that I didn't have relationships anymore, right? Like because I think that also, maybe as a background, I had that trip when I was like really like moving from one identity to the other. It was really when I chose to like be the person I am right now. because before I used to be very like anxious attached to people, and I used to be the one that would like carry most of my friendships. And it was the time that I was like, you know what, I deserve better. I deserve to have friends that, like me. Not like, I don't think like it's the proper word, but I think that like when you have friends, you both have to be interested in the friendship, and you both really have to want to be friends. And I was just so tired of like always being the one that was like expected to keep the relationship going. So it was the time that I was like, you know what, I'd rather be alone for a while than to have people that don't appreciate me fully, in my life. Because, like, at the end of the day, like, if you have people that are not aligned with you, like, you're gonna feel alone regardless, And so, like, I understood that being grateful for those people really created the closure that I was seeking. Because I think that like when you do end a relationship, you kind of want closure. Especially if it's like a longer relationship, it's like something has to make sense, or you don't want to end in like bad vibes, right? But if we always wait for closure, like we're just gonna be stuck in those relationships forever, right? So for me, like instead of doing that, I was able to look at them and appreciate them, be grateful for them. And I was able to let go. I was able to like fully detach. I still appreciate what they did to me back then, but like right now I don't have to carry them with me anymore because we do not own each other anything. The past is the past, and I think that like letting go, like it really takes a heavy weight off your shoulder. And I don't think detachment is cold. I think it's just release. um, and with all those stories, I'm going to end this episode saying that psychedelics didn't solve my problems. They didn't magically fix my life, but they did help me see things differently, and sometimes that's enough. A new perspective can change an entire chapter of your life. And just FYI, all these stories are from my book. It's called The Way Back to Myself. And if you enjoyed this episode and you want the full versions, that's where you find them. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending time with me. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.